Welcome to the Hidden Language of Children podcast. Are you interested in knowing your young child in a whole new way? Understanding what's really going on in their developing mind? Does your child say or do things that make you stop and wonder, where did that come from? Well, I'm your host, Dr. Kimberly Bell, Clinical Director at the Hannah Perkins Center for Child Development in Shaker Heights, Ohio, where we work with families to become the boss of themselves by understanding and managing their feelings. Our guest today is Dr. Adrianne Fletcher, who is Vice Dean for Academic Community Engagement at the Case Western Reserve University School of Medicine, an assistant professor at the Mandel School of Applied Social Sciences, also at Case Western. And most relevant for today's conversation, she's tapped into her 20 years as a social worker and psychotherapist to become a children's book author. Welcome, Adrianne. We have 3 books that we need to be talking about today. So why don't we start by you telling us a little bit about how you decided to venture into writing children's books?
Absolutely. And thank you, Kim, for inviting me on this podcast. So, what you said was terribly relevant. Have you ever stopped to wonder why your child said this or that? Most of these books, the 3 that have been published and those that are waiting to be published, were birthed from things that my children said during their formative years that made me stop and say, I wonder why they said that. So they're really birthed out of those moments of observation with my very own children and children that we had the opportunity to engage with.
So let's start with the first one, Helping Hands, Healing Hands. How did that come about?
So that one is particularly different. As I mentioned that most of the books came forward from my own experiences with my children, but that book was birthed out of my personal experience with my maternal grandmother, who happened to be a maid right here in the Shaker Heights, Ohio area. And I had the opportunity to go to work with her one summer, the summer of my 5th birthday before kindergarten. And I had the opportunity to watch her do her work on a daily basis. And during that time, while she was working, she was listening to me and also pouring life into me. So Helping Hands, Healing Hands was birthed out of Adrianne, you can be whoever you want to be.
You know, a lot of people know that famous quote from Mr. Rogers, always look for the helpers, right? And when times are tough, always look for the helpers. What people may not know is that that actually originally came from Anna Freud. So it went like Anna Freud, Mr. Rogers, Anna Freud, Hannah Perkins. And being able to look for the helpers, being able to have your inside helper, being able to help your peers, being able to help your parents, this idea of having this impact on the people that you are in relationship with, I
Mhm.
think has always been such an important message here. And what I really liked in your book is the breadth and depth of the types of ways that you can help,
Yes,
right?
yes.
So tell me a little bit more about how then that impacted you to be a helper. What was it you were seeing?
Absolutely. So I saw a woman pour her life into the lives of other people. And what we can know about maids or domestic workers is that they don't receive a lot of compensation often for the work that they do. And sometimes the families that they work with are not the most agreeable. But what I saw was a woman who had, first and foremost, a relationship with the family that she worked with. And thankfully, it was a good relationship. And that relationship fed into her life, and she was able to feed into their lives. And then it fed into my life as well. So it was really about relationship, reciprocal relationship, and healthy relationships, which we know, Kim, everything happens in the context of relationship. Terribly important. So that was a big impetus for the book.
So tell me a little bit about what you hope parents learn from this.
So the goal would be to absolutely lean into your children about the careers that they want as they mature. Help them to think out loud about that profession or those things that they want to do. But more importantly, and I think what's underneath all of this is the type of person you are doing the work, right?
Mhm.
So my grandmother was committed to doing amazing work for the people she had the opportunity to serve. And reciprocally, the family had the opportunity to compensate her in a way that was meaningful for individuals doing that kind of work at that time, particularly as a woman of color. So, what's underneath then is how we do the work and how we engage with each other, which goes back to the notion of relationship.
Mhm. Yeah, I'm looking at it right here. And, I think here's one of the things that, and I'm sure you and I are gonna have more conversations about this, is sometimes I feel like children's books, they don't always paint parents in the best light. Do you know what I'm talking about? Like, sometimes the parents are learning the lesson along with the child.
Mhm.
And I have this real pull towards books that present socially, emotionally talented parents.
Yes.
And I noticed actually in all of your books that family was the center of it. This isn't a family going out to learn a lesson. This
Mhm.
is a child learning a lesson in the home from the parents. And I don't know why sometimes we do that in children's books where the parents have this thing they also have to learn from some outside force. Because certainly I know here at Hannah Perkins, and you've been part of us for years and years and years, um, the parents could not be more important,
Right.
and so it is a
Mhm.
grandmother, a mother, those moments within a family
Mhm.
where these messages are given to children and are demonstrated and are modeled and all of those kinds of things.
Abs-
So I really appreciated that
Yes.
about the way you did this. Okay, so that is Helping Hands, Healing Hands. Now, the second one, I just love the name of. This is Rocky Grace and the Speckled Brown Bananas.
Yes.
So where does that come from?
So that really comes from an experience that I had, an ongoing experience that I had with all of my children in either making banana bread or zucchini bread. I'm just going to drop a really quick narrative in. I have to tell you, there was an occasion when we were making zucchini bread. Zucchini bread has nutmeg in it and cinnamon.
Mhm.
One day we put too much nutmeg in the zucchini bread. We baked it anyway. It was terribly hot. I had no idea that nutmeg could make a flavor such as heat come through a bread. And my children will never forget. You remember the hot zucchini bread. So that really does just feed into the experience of learning together,
Mhm.
making mistakes together, and it's
Mhm.
okay. So we look back on that experience with laughter quite frequently.
Certainly, one of the things that I get from it is the importance of engagement. So let's just talk a little, maybe even a little theoretically,
Yeah.
about what we think developmentally happens
Mhm.
when we engage in what people would consider to be such a simple task, that cooking together or baking together or gardening together or vacuuming together. Or I think we can extend that to a lot of those daily activities
Absolutely.
that create these special moments.
Mhm.
And so what, as a parent, did you pull from that special
Mhm.
moment?
So, Kim, I am very process oriented. It's
Mhm,
a process of learning the task. And underneath that, it's about the process of building the relationship,
mhm,
especially when things don't necessarily go right during the process of learning to make banana bread or zucchini bread. We all learn from that. It's about the process of when the child does everything perfect and they can be praised for that, right? So it's both and. What they do really well, when they make mistakes, when there's middle ground, it's always about the process
mhm,
of learning, the process of relationship building. Both of those are occurring at the exact same time.
mhm.
Both require a lot of patience from the parents, a lot of breathing, a lot of saying, we'll get it right next time. So it's okay. It's okay as we learn together.
Mhm. Yeah, so even if the zucchini bread's a little spicy this time,
It's okay.
we've learned something about nutmeg, haven't we?
We
Like,
have, we have.
there's some science in it, and how you handle frustration and modulate all of that for yourself then translates to how children then go off out into the world and manage patience and frustration. And, I kind of have visions of just, staring at the oven, waiting for the result. And how long is this going to take? And how long can we be patient to get the results of our labor? And um, all of those little, I guess we'd call them teachable moments, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And Kim, you and I know that. Children remember these things in a feeling state.
Mhm.
There's that piece, and there's also the smell, the aroma, I should say, that's coming from the oven, and all of those pieces, they come together, right, to create this amazing experience that children don't soon forget because their bodies
Yeah, it's so far it takes the piece of parenting that goes so far beyond what I think many of us can get caught up in, especially if it's difficult times, that, you care for, you clothe, you house, you pay the bills, you make the meals. Life can get really hard sometimes, and it can feel difficult to take all the extra time that's necessary. And what do you say? What do you say to those parents where they're like, "Oh, I would love to have time to bake with my child," or "I would love to have time, but"
So for those parents who struggle with that timing piece, and that occurs particularly when children are either in their very early years or in their adolescent years for whatever reason. So what we try to find are those moments that are work best for both the child and the parent, whether it be 10 minutes before we leave for school, or whether it be the last few minutes of the day when the child can really depend on this will be mommy and me time, or this will be daddy and me time, or this will be auntie and me time, or whoever that caring adult is.
Mhm.
Long as the child and the parent know that there is a time that they can depend on, even if it's not a protracted period of time, they can point to a dot on the horizon and say, that time is that helps, right?
Yeah.
Because we are busy, we are all terribly stretched. And right now, their children are in those formative years, and they say, "Mommy, it's not fair. You made it look so easy." I said, "It was never easy, but you have to decide."
You know what? I wanna underline that. That's such a beautiful sentiment that your children remember. We hear this a lot, like, "I never knew we didn't have money," or "You made it look so easy." And I think the message to parents in that statement isn't, "Oh, good, I covered up my anxiety attack really well."
Right.
It's trying for parents now to remember in the moment that that's not what your child is committing to memory.
Correct.
Your child isn't committing to memory how busy you were. They're committing to memory the emotional and physical experience of that moment.
Ex
And they're very good at getting rid of some of those external stressors that we may be brought into the
Mhm.
situation, right? And they don't remember if it was a half an hour or an hour. They just remember the quality of that time, and that's what I think shows up in, a statement like that. And I also wanna talk about, as you talked about making mistakes, but let's
Mhm.
also talk about perfection.
Mhm.
I think sometimes people will say, "Well, I don't do that well," like parents, like, "Well, I'm not really good at that," or "I'm not really good at this," and I think certainly in the days of social media when we see quote unquote "perfect families" cooking together
Yes.
or like, just like, oh, doing TikTok dances together or whatever,
Correct.
that you can look at your family and say, "Well, we are imperfect,"
Yes.
or "I'm not a cook, I'm not a chef," or eh,
Mhm.
what would you say to those parents?
So I would say be vulnerable. Your children are going to learn so much more from you in those vulnerable moments. I can remember so many occasions when things just didn't go right. If mommy had a migraine and we had to stop and mommy didn't feel well, and I had to say, "Can you quick grab a bucket?" or whatever. My children remember these moments when, "Do you remember when mommy didn't feel good? And do you remember when we went to the zoo and this happened or that happened?" So I would say to parents who might struggle with perfectionism, be vulnerable. Your children are going to learn so much more from you if you are your authentic self,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Being perfect it's a great untruth that we don't want to message to our children.
yeah. And I know from my own, like, personal experience, like, there were some things that my mother used to cook all the time, and I have those really strong sensory memories to them,
Yes.
and, one of them is coq au vin, right?
Mhm.
And I went to a restaurant once, and I'm like, "Oh, there's coq au vin, the menu, ooh, childhood." And I ordered it, and this very fancy dish came out, and I'm like, "What is this? This is not what my mother made with mushroom soup and pearl onions and, cooking sherry."
Yes,
And what do I prefer? Do I prefer fancy? No, I want my mother's recipe
exactly.
in all of its imperfection
E
and simpleness and budget.
Mhm. Absolutely. It's
Yeah.
so meaningful. So meaningful.
Yeah. Oh, that's lovely. Okay, I wanna move on now to the 3rd book,
Okay.
which I have so many questions about this one too.
Okay.
So the 3rd book is Meet Rocky Grace, the bright girl with the gray eyes. Let me just hold this
Yes.
one up, and then we're also gonna get a link to it. From the minute I picked it up, I'm like, "How on earth? What's going on there? How did you come up with gray eyes as a way to talk about loving your differences?"
Yeah. So actually, Kim, you may not have noticed, but it is very personal.
Oh,
If you were to look directly into my eyes or into the eyes of my grandmother on my maternal side, if we go up my maternal side, what we see is a change in the color of the eyes with a gray halo on the outer part of the iris, where the inner part of the iris remains brown. But over time, the whole iris will turn gray. Very interesting phenomenon. It happens in a very specific West African tribe. We're not exactly sure. I have heard that it has to do with a safe buildup of cholesterol in the body. And I know that's really technical.
that's okay.
It was about me learning about why the color of my eyes were changing. Now, children do not have gray eyes. There was a little girl inside of me, and she had
Ah.
gray, brown. And so that's what that's about.
What a beautiful way to talk about sort of the acceptance of uniqueness.
Yes.
Like, that's what I got out of it.
E-
What else did you want people to get out of this story?
Exactly. And if you take a quick look at the cover, you will notice that Rocky Grace has, we'll call a challenge on her left hand. Her two
You know, I
middle
didn't even
fingers,
notice she absolutely does.
she does. And we didn't point it out in that way, but with her arms extended, it is an indication of Rocky Grace's acceptance of who she is through and through and through. And we explain, if we would like to call it a disability, on the back cover just a little bit to help children and families understand how we can be our authentic selves no matter what we look like, no matter what our physical experience is.
I wanted to mention also that one of the things that I loved is in the back of the Speckled Brown Banana book, you have the recipe
Yes.
for speckled brown banana bread. And in the back of Meet Rocky Grace, you have a little exercise. And
Yes.
that's something that I've also thought of is that I think it's helpful to have like, there's little activities to reinforce the lesson that comes along with accepting ourselves for who we are, but you also venture into feelings.
Yes.
And so the activity at the back is on the one side, there's all these happy, sad, angry, loving, frustrated, mad, content. Great word to learn, by the way, content. And then what do I do when I feel this way? And these conversation starters. And then you have these great vocabulary words with definitions. So it's a lovely story, but it's also so useful. Did you mean it as a conversation starter? Is that what you're
Well, it's interesting that you framed it that way,
That's how
right?
yeah.
That I love that. So I hadn't thought of them as conversation starters, but they absolutely are. It was really just about learning and being able to name feelings, right? What do I do when I feel happy? What do I do when I'm angry? So naming the feeling and connecting it with the behavior, which we know is often a disconnect. So to help children or help parents begin to bridge that gap between those two pieces and also just the learning of new words. But I think the other piece is I like being unconventional. We tell children, you can't color in books. You can't draw in books unless it's a coloring book. No,
Mhm,
get your marker, get your crayon. Let's use this for
mhm, mhm.
your learning.
I had a professor who once told me that a book is not well read until it has dog-eared corner.
Absolutely right. I agree. 200%.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, books are not meant to remain pristine. They're meant to be reread, reread, reread. And, I could see this book being the kind of book that is read and reread over and over and over again and being well used because the thing that has always been fascinating to me, and we see it in movies, and I know I've talked to parents about it with regard to movies that children wanna watch over and over and over again. Those movies usually indicate that there is something going on in the movie that is speaking to a need in the child to resolve something,
Mm.
to master something. Sometimes it's the scary part, or sometimes it's something about the character. And I think the same is true in books that get read over and over and over again.
It's true.
And so if you have a child who has a difference, a uniqueness from the people around them, I think this is the kind of book that a child goes back to and reprocesses and reprocesses. And
It's
so what do you say to parents? Like, I know what I would say. I want to know what you would say to parents who are like, "Ugh, I read the same book 4 times a day."
Exactly. I love it. And I would say, as you just said, there is something meaningful that your child has connected with in this particular book. And I will share with you that one of my dear friends and colleagues at the School of Social Work said to me, her children are in their formative years. She said, they say, "Can you read Speckled Brown again?" That's what they call it, Speckled Brown. So they read Speckled Brown over and over again. And what would be interesting is to have her ask the question, what is it that you like about Speckled? Or what's hard about speckled brown? What sticks out for you? Right? But I agree. The child is connecting with something in the story. And as long as they need it, we can allow that story to remain present in their lives.
So I just love these, and I encourage everybody to take a look and to get these. So I got mine off of Amazon,
Yes.
but I also Googled Adrianne Fletcher
Mhm.
author, children's books,
Mhm.
and they came up on Google as well. Are there other places to get these books?
Absolutely. So
Okay.
you can go to Kindle Hunt. So Kindle Hunt publishes curriculum for K through 12 and for higher ed. So Kindle Hunt is a good place to start, or Innovative Inc. Either of those will get you to all of the publications under my name.
Okay, so let me stick in yet one more commercial, and then we're gonna do one more piece. If you are a parent in the Cleveland area and like what you hear about our approach to child development, early education, you might consider enrollment for your little ones in our toddler group or our preschool. Hannah Perkins was an early pioneer in social emotional education way back in the 1950s when it was still called nursery school. Our school is rolling admissions, so we're always giving tours and taking applications. You can get lots of more information at our website, hannahperkins.org. For our listeners, that's HANNAPERKINS.org. Okay, Adrianne,
Well,
we have a segment in every podcast that we like to call Let's Rephrase That,
mhm.
where we talk about things grown-ups say to children, and we come up with alternatives that are maybe what we consider to be a little more useful. Are you game?
I'm game. Let's do
All
it.
right. All right. I think I have one that you will have something to say about. So here's the situation. Georgia is the tallest kid in the 2nd grade.
Mhm.
She just came home from school, upset that some of the children have taken to calling her Giraffe. Mom tries to soothe her by saying, "Don't worry about it. They're just saying that because they're jealous." I think there might be a better way to handle the
Right.
situation. How might you suggest?
Right. So maybe Georgia, I would remind her of who she is. You are a girl and you are tall. I would remind her that there are probably other tall people, and I know I'm not rephrasing this, but I'm just thinking out loud here. So
Oh, this is what we do. This is how
oh,
it goes. Mhm.
perfect. Well, I would validate her height. I would validate her height as something amazing. I would take the time to explore other tall people. I would also take a little bit of time, believe it or not, to learn about giraffes. Why don't we dig into giraffes, right?
That's
Let's find
fascinating.
out about their strength and their statue and why they're tall and what that helps them to do. And then we can think about what your height helps you to do that perhaps maybe other children can't do. This may be a gift.
That was brilliant. I'm just sort of sitting with that for a second because I think, again, I always go back to this idea that what we are asking parents to do here is slow down their parenting,
Yes.
because to say, "Oh, they're just jealous," it seems like, well, that's the fastest way to get my child to not feel whatever they're feeling. But by slowing down the pace of that and allowing your child to
Have the
we
fear.
first have to have that feeling, right? To first have the feeling and then to really think about their uniqueness and think about the positives of being who they are, now I'm projecting that child into their future,
Yes,
the next day, 5 years from now, whatever. And how does that child now handle those moments differently?
exactly. Exactly.
And
And
we
I really love that you said that I completely left out feel the feelings. And a way for that child to respond when that name calling comes back is that that really makes me sad or it really makes me angry. Tell that child that,
Mm.
the name caller. And that puts a whole different spin on it, right? To name the feeling and let someone else know this is what I'm feeling as a result of what you said.
Yeah, we don't do enough of that, I
Mm,
don't think, in general in the world.
correct.
And I think if we're feeling good about our height or our body type or any of our uniquenesses or our differences,
Yes.
somebody could say, "Well, you're tall, you're like a giraffe." And what would happen if you were like, "Thank you?" Like, if you were the person who could sort of see that nod as what it was meant to be, it kind of takes the air out of the reaction they were hoping to get.
Only does.
Because I think what we understand about bullying
Mhm.
is that there is a vulnerability in the bully that they're covering up by
Exactly.
making somebody else feel small so that they can feel bigger or better.
Exactly.
And if that doesn't work necessarily, uh, then it kind of takes the air out of the bullying. I
Yes.
mean, I don't want to oversimplify those kinds of
Right.
situations, but I certainly agree with you that slowing down and having the conversation and finding the positives is so important
It is.
with
It
regard to body image of all kinds.
exactly, exactly.
One more question. I have to jump back because now this question leads me to another question
Mhm.
about your book, which is the difference that she has with her hand. Why was it important to you to add that piece in?
It's kind of interesting. It came about by accident, if I'm being fully transparent. It came about by accident because, someone had made a comment about the way one of the pictures looked, and I instead of feeling badly about this piece of art that I hadn't noticed that there was this discrepancy in, I decided to spin it on its head and turn it into something good. Well,
Mhm.
actually, it occurred because of I want to say an attack on me and the artwork. And I thought, wow. And I felt my feelings. I felt really bad. And I named the feeling, and I kid you not, the idea came out of nowhere. So I thought, but the idea came, use it.
Mhm.
Looks like two fingers are missing. We're going to capitalize on that. And it also is going to be a big help to children who do have different physical
Mm.
challenges.
Because here's what I like about it, and here's why I didn't notice it, quite honestly, is because it's not the topic of the book.
It is not the topic of the
It just is.
it just is. It's who Rocky Grace is. And as you can see with her arms extended, she embraces who she is.
Yeah.
And her parents have taken the time to help her to accommodate writing or drawing or holding or doing whatever she needs to do in order to be successful in life. And she doesn't have to hide it. It's
Yeah.
just who she is.
It's just who she is. It's not even the main topic of conversation.
It is not.
Awesome. Well, I look forward to whatever is coming next for you. Do you know what it is, or is it still a secret?
No, actually, the next book is Goodbye for Now. And it is a book about children dealing with grief and the loss of
Oh,
actually a parent. And following that one is a funner book called Too Hot for Socks. So those two are in queue right now.
awesome. Oh, that's so cool. All right. Well, we'll have you back. We'll talk about those books too
Sounds- Kim,
in our
thank you.
continuing conversation. Okay. Thank you so much, Adrianne, for coming by today and having this conversation. I always love talking with you. All right. For now, however, that is our time for today. If our conversations here have raised questions for you, or if you have parenting concerns of your own, please share them with us. We are happy to answer your questions on air when we can. You can send questions by email to hiddenlanguageofchildren@gmail.com. We hope that everybody here that is listening or watching has enjoyed this conversation and found something to take away from it. The Hidden Language of Children podcast is a production of nonprofit Hannah Perkins Center for Child Development in beautiful Shaker Heights, Ohio. Our audio video editor is Greg Romano, our producer, Bob Rosenbaum, and Dan Ratner is our consulting producer. If you like this podcast, please subscribe to hear future episodes and share it with friends and family. I am Dr. Kimberly Bell, and we will see you next time.